Vaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 20. Rajas Tamo Bhayam Akshipitam. Vinuda Mana Atmana. Yache Dharayana Dhiro. Anti Yat Tat Krutam Malam. Hare Krishna is doing English.
Yeah, Indira Mataji.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Hare Krishna. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify this conception by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them.
Text 21. Yashayam Sandaya Manayam Yogino Bhakti Lakshana Asu Sampadhyate Yoga Ashram Vajram Ikshataha.
O king, by the system of the remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter.
Text 22. Raja Vacha Yata Sandaryata Brahman Dharaya Yatra Samatata Yada Shiva Harid Ashu Purushasya Manonmalam.
The fortunate King Parikshit inquired further, said, O Brahmana, please describe in full details how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed.
Text 23. Shri Sukha Vacha Jitasano Jita Swaso Jita Sango Jitendriyaha Sthule Bhagavato Rupe Mana Sandhya Dhiyaha.
Sukdeva Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by the yogic pranayam, and thus control the mind and senses with intelligence. Apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord, called the Virat Rupa.
Text 24. Visheshatasya dehoyam sa vistas tatasva vishayasam yatredam yajete visvam bhutam bhayam bhavachcha sat.
This gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the Absolute Truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of the material time is experienced.
Text 25. Ande kose shariresmin sapta varna samuyate vairaja purusho yaso bhagwan dharana shayaha.
The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by the sevenfold material elements, is the subject to the Virat conception.
Text 26. Patalam etasya padgulam pathanti parsani prapadeti rasatalam mahatalam vishwasota gulapaho talatalam vai purusasya jangai.
Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as the Patala constitutes the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rastala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitutes of Talatala planets.
Text 27. De januni sutalam vishwamurte urudvayam vitalam chatlalam cha mahitalam tatchagnam mahipate nabhastalam nabhisam grunanti.
The knees of the universal form are the planetary system of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala planetary system. The hips are the Mahitala and the outer space of his depression of his navel.
Text 28. Urusthalam Jyoti Anikam Sasya Grivamah Vadanam Vachta Janosya Tapo Varatim Vidu Adi Punsha Satyam Tu Shirsani Sasha Shirshanaha.
The chest of the original personality of this gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Mahar planets. His mouth is the Janas planets. And his forehead is the Tapas planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as the Satyalok, is his head of he who has 1,000 heads.
Indriyadev Bhava Ahushra Karuna Disho Srotam Amusya Sabdaha Nastaya Dasro Parmasaya Nase Granosya Gandho Mukham Agni Idha.
His arms are the demigods headed by Indra, and the 10 directional sides are his ears, and the physical sound of his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumaras, and the material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is a blazing fire.
Text 30. Dayu Akshni Chakur Abhut Patangaha Paksmani Vishnu Aham Uvecha Tadbru Vimabha Parmesti Tishniyam Aposha Talu Ras Eva Jivaha.
The sphere of the outer space constitutes his eye pits, and the eyeballs is the sun as the power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and night, and in the moments of his eyebrows, the Brahma, and the similarly Supreme Personality resides. His palate is the director of Bhuta Varuna, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue.
Text 31. Chandamasya Anantasya Shiro Granti Tamasrayama Sneha Kala Dijani Haso Jana Mada Karicha Maya Duranto Sargoya Apanga Mokshaha.
They say that the Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord, and his jaw of teeth are Yama, the god of death, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring, illusory material energy is his smile. The great ocean of the material creation is but the casting of his glance over us.
Text 32. Vidodosha Vidososto Dhara Eva Lobo Dharmastano Dharma Pathosya Pustham Kastasya Medram Vashno Cha Mitro Ukshi Samudra Griyosti Sangaha.
Modesty is the upper portion of his lips. Hankering is his chin. Religion is the breast of the Lord, and irreligion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals, and the Mitram Varunas are his 2 testicles. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stakes of his bones.
Text 33. Nadyosha Nadyota Tanu Ruhani Mahi Ruha Rishwa Tanu Nupendra Ananta Virya Swastitam Matra Shiva Gati Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha.
O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his moments, and his activities are the reaction of the 3 modes of material nature.
Text 34. Isasya ke vidur ambu vahan Vasastu Sandayam Kuru Varya Bhumanaha Avyaktam Ahu Hradayam Manascha Sa Chandrama Sarva Vikara Kosaha.
O West, amongst the Kurus. The clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The termination of days and nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes.
विज्ञान शक्ति महिम अमनन्ति सर्वात्मनो न कर्णम गीत्रम अश्वस्वतरी उस्त गजा नखानि सर्वमूर्ध पशव शनि देशे.
The principle of matter, Mahatattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord, as asserted by the experts, and the Rudradeva is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and the wild animals and the quadrupeds are situated in the belt zone of the Lord.
36. Vayamsi tad vyakarnam vichitram manu manisha manuja nivasah gandharva vidyad charana pasasarah swar smriti asuranika viryah.
Varieties of birds are indication of his masterful artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence. Humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and angels all represent his musical rhythm, and the demonic soldiers are representation of his wonderful powers.
637. Brahmana nam Shatra Bhuja Mahatma Vida Uru Angari Sri Krishna Varnaha Nana Bhida Bhijaya Gunopapano Dravya Maka Karma Vitana Yogaha.
The Virat Purasa's face is the Brahmanas, his arms are the Kshatriyas, his thighs are the Vaishyas, and the Sudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipful demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with visible goods to appease the Lord.
Yanaso Ishwa Vigrahasya Yasanivesha Katito Mayate Sandaryate Smi Vipasusstaviste Manasva Buddhaya Nayato Sti Kinchit.
I have thus explained to you the gross material, gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord, because there is nothing more than this in the material world.
Text 39. Sa sarva di viti anubhuta sarva atma yatha sapana janakshi kaha tam satyam ananda nidhim bhajate nanyatra sajate yato atma patahya. Hare Krishna.
One should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as an ordinary person creates thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. Hare Krishna. Please accept my apologies if I'm mispronounced any words.
Please excuse me. I didn't practice, so I hope it sounded all right.
Thank you, Krishangi Mataji and Indira Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Indira Mataji and Krishangi Mataji. Yes, you sounded fine, Krishangi Mataji.
Because I didn't practice, and I was suddenly told that there's nobody, so you take over. So
You did well under the circumstances. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Welcome, dear devotees, to today's chat session. We continue with our reading discussion of the first chapter of the second canto, chapter entitled The First Stages of God Realization. And today we'll be covering texts 20 to 23. So So we'll begin by reciting the Mangala Charanam prayers. So please join in. We unmuted mics. Let's make sure everyone's muted. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sasidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dishatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So let's quickly refresh from where we are. So in this chapter, we have Shukadev Goswami speaking for the first time, responding to the question raised by Maharaj Parikshit. And in text number 1 to 11, Shukadev Goswami describes the superiority of bhakti, devotional service. Then text 12 to 14, he discusses the quality of life matters, not the quantity. So it's the quality of our life, not the quantity. One can live a short life, but a very rich life. But one can live a long life, bereft. And he gives the example of Maharaj Kadvanga, who in a moment he became completely self-realized. Then in text 15 all the way to text 39, Shukadev Goswami is going to speak about the Ashtanga Yoga process. And we'll discuss a bit more detail on why he does that. Having described the superiority of bhakti, one may question, why is he describing the Ashtanga Yoga process? Why don't he just discuss bhakti? So we'll discuss that. So text 20 to 21, he's describing in more detail the Ashtanga Yoga process, specifically the goal of the Ashtanga Yoga process. So text number 20. Rajastamobhyam akshiptam vimudham mana atmanaha yachedharanaya dhiro antiya tatkritam malam. Rajaha, the passionate mode of nature. Tambobhyam, as well as the ignorant mode of material nature. Akshiptam, agitated, vimudham, bewildered. Manaha, the mind. Atmanaha, of one's own. Yachet, gets rectified. Dharanaya, by conception of Vishnu. Dhiraha, the pacified. Anti, destroys. Ya, all those tatkritam, done by them. Malam, dirty things. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Purport. Persons generally conducted by the modes of passion and ignorance cannot be bona fide candidates for being situated in the transcendental stage of God realization. Only persons conducted by the mode of goodness can have the knowledge of the supreme truth. Effects of the modes of passion and ignorance are manifested by too much hankering after woman and wealth. And those who are too much after wealth and woman can rectify their leanings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu in his feature composed of impersonal potencies. Generally, the impersonalists or monists are influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance. Such impersonalists think of themselves as liberated souls, but they have no knowledge of the transcendental personal feature of the absolute truth. Actually, they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that after many hundreds of births, the impersonal philosopher surrenders on the personality of Godhead. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. Pantheism is in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth, but it extends the conception of the absolute truth into the field of the so-called material energy. Everything created by the material energy can be dovetailed with the absolute by an attitude of service, which is the essential part of living energy. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the heart of converting everything into its spiritual existence by the service attitude. And only in that devotional way can the theory of pantheism be perfected. So, Shukdev Goswami has been discussing the path of Astanga Yoga. And in text 20 and 21, maybe we can read 21 together because it's got a similar theme. Let's do 21 too. Yasyam sandaram sandharyam annayam yogino bhakti lakshanaha ashu sampadyate yoga ashrayam bhadram iksh sathaha. Translation. O King, by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all-good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. Purport. Success of mystic performances is achieved only by the help of the devotional attitude. Pantheism, or the system of feeling the presence of the Almighty everywhere, is a sort of training of the mind to become accustomed to the devotional conception. And it is this devotional attitude of the mystic that makes possible the successful termination of such mystic attempts. One is not, however, elevated to such a successful status without the tinge of mixture in devotional service. The devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic vision develops into devotional service in later days, and that is the only benefit for the impersonalist. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 12:5 that the impersonal way of self-realization is more troublesome because it reaches the goal in an indirect way. Although the personalist also becomes obsessed with the personal feature of the Lord after a long time. Just want to bring up this verse so we can read it. 12:5 of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So verses 20 to 21, Shukdev Goswami is speaking about dharana. So verses 16, 17, 18, 19, he's described the Astanga Yoga process, Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pratyahara, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. So the whole purpose of the yogic process or spiritual life is to be able to fix the mind on the form of the Lord. Now, one who is very accustomed towards conceiving the Lord as impersonal, for them to transition to thinking of the Lord in his personal feature, that's a big jump. It's a very difficult step for them. And many of them will not be able to do it. Why is that so? Prabhupada explains in the purport, it's because their minds are not pure. Their minds are still contaminated by the modes of passion. So Shukdev Goswami, he's going to recommend in this chapter how these people will be able to eventually fix their mind on the Lord. It's a process. Now, I raised the question earlier that if Shukadev Goswami had explained the superiority of bhakti, why is he talking about this process? And the simple answer is that there was a variegated audience that was listening to this conversation between Maharaj Parikshit and Shukdev Goswami. In that audience, there were karma yogis, there were jnanis, there were astanga yogis, and there were bhaktas. So the great souls, the spiritual masters, their goal is to bring everyone to the lotus feet of Krishna, meaning bring everyone to the stage of bhakti. Some fortunate people, they can go straight to bhakti, but others cannot do that. They have to be guided in a different way. And therefore, we see a big chunk of this chapter, a big portion of this chapter, Shukdev Goswami is describing how such people who are not pure, who are unable to come to the Bhagavan feature, how they can transition to the personal feature of the Lord. And Prabhupada explains there, or in the purport, that they have to conceive of the Lord in a pantheistic way. Pantheistic way. Pantheistic way meaning thinking of the Absolute as a very variegated person. Now, let me just quickly bring up the dictionary meaning of pantheism. Dictionary. So the definition is a doctrine that equates God with the forces and the laws of the universe, or the worship of all gods of different creeds, cults, or peoples indifferently. The toleration of worship of all gods. And basically, it is seeing God manifested in a variety of forms, and not in one specific transcendental form. So in this particular chapter, Shukdev Goswami is going to describe the Lord in terms of his Virat Rupa, his universal form, or how we can see the Lord manifested in various natural aspects of his creation. And the idea is that if someone can see the world as a manifestation of the Lord's personal form, gradually they'll move from an impersonal conception of God to a personal. Firstly as the Virat Rupa, and then gradually to the Bhagavan feature. And Prabhupada says, pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth. So what does that mean, pantheism in its higher status? In its higher status is what Shukadev Goswami is there, seeing what would normally be considered an impersonal feature of the Lord, being a personal aspect of the Lord. Prabhupada said it extends the conception of the absolute truth into the field of the so-called material energy. That means seeing the material energy as a personal feature of the Lord. How we can see, the trees like the hairs of the body, on the body of the Lord. The rivers, his veins. The cloud like the hair on his head. His mouth like the blazing fire. His eyeballs like the sun. His eyelids like day and night. The jaws of his teeth as Yama. So from verses 29 to 37, many verses, Shukdev Goswami is explaining the Virat Rupa, how one can see the material energy as the personal feature of the Lord. That's where Shukdev Goswami is taking, is helping some of the audience to transition to bhakti, the full personal feature of the Lord. And Prabhupada says bhakti means we have to think of the Lord as a person. Those who cannot think of the Lord as a person, they will think, oh, Krishna doesn't get angry. The God, the Lord or the Absolute Truth doesn't get hungry, so there's no need to feed him. The Absolute Truth doesn't get thirsty, so there's no need to offer him drink. The Absolute Truth doesn't feel the need to take some rest, so there's no need to offer him a bed. So from the impersonal standpoint, it's very difficult to offer service, to offer devotional service. It's very difficult because devotional service is offered to a person. We see the Lord as a person, and we have a loving exchange with him as a person. So, we have to, devotional service can only manifest from that stage. And then Prabhupada says, a devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic vision develops into devotional service in later days. Pantheistic vision, you see the material nature of material creation as a personal aspect, and that will develop into devotional service. So we'll move on to text number 22. Raja Uvacha Yata Sandharyate Brahman Dharana Yatra Sammatha Yadrishiva Redashu Purasya Manomalam. The fortunate king Parikshit, inquiring further, asked, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be. Please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied, and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. A dirty thing in the heart of a conditioned soul are the root cause of all troubles for him. A conditioned soul is surrounded by the manifold miseries of material existence, but on account of his gross ignorance, he is unable to remove the troubles due to dirty things in the heart, accumulated during the long prison life in the material world. He is actually meant to serve the will of the Supreme Lord, but on account of dirty things in the heart, he likes to serve his concocted desires. These desires, instead of giving him any peace of mind, create new problems and thus bind him to the cycle of repeated birth and death. These dirty things of fruital work and empiric philosophy can be removed only by association with the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. Thus, persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the Absolute are given a chance to associate with this Virat Rupa, or the cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord. The cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord is a feature of his unlimited potencies. Since the potent and potencies are identical, even the conception of his impersonal cosmic feature helps the conditioned soul to associate with the Lord indirectly and thus gradually rise to the stage of personal contact. Maharaj Parikshit was already connected with the personal feature of Lord Sri Krishna, and as such he had no need to inquire from Shukdev Goswami about where and how to apply the mind in the impersonal Virat Rupa of the Lord. But he inquired after a detailed description of the matter for the benefit of others who are unable to conceive of the transcendental personal feature of the Lord as the form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The non-devotee class of men cannot think of the personal feature of the Lord. Because of their poor fund of knowledge, the personal form of the Lord, like Ram or Krishna, is completely revolting to them. They have a poor estimation of the potency of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is explained by the Lord himself that people with the poor fund of knowledge deride the supreme personality of Godhead, taking him to be a common man. Such men are ignorant of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. By the inconceivable potency of the Lord, he can move in human society or any other society of living beings and yet remain the same omnipotent Lord without deviating in the slightest from his transcendental position. So for the benefit of men who are unable to accept the Lord in his personal eternal form, Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukdev Goswami how to fix the mind of him in the beginning, and the Goswami replied in detail as follows. So here we hear Maharaj Parikshit asking a question for further clarification on how the mind can be applied to this Virat Rupa feature of the Lord. And there's a couple of main points being here. Firstly, one has to remove dirty things from one's heart. Without removing the dirty things from one's heart, there is no question of being able to fix one's mind. Why? Because one is situated in the mode of passion and ignorance. And being in the mode of passion, the mode of passion is characterized by constant anchoring and lamenting. Anchoring for that which we don't have, and lamenting for that which we had and we lost. So these dirty things have to be removed. And what is the best way to remove the dirty things? Is to hear about the personal feature of the Lord. That is the best way of removing the dirty things. But if one is not accustomed to hear about or to the personal feature of the Lord, this narration of the personal feature of the Lord will not be attractive. One will not be able to sit and listen. So therefore one has to cleanse their heart by listening about the form of the Lord, cosmic impersonal feature. Prabhupada describes it as. Through this way, they'll be able to be purified. And in the second paragraph, Prabhupada is raising the point, Maharaj Parikshit, he was interested in the personal feature of the Lord. Why will he ask such questions for Shukdev Goswami to expand on? And Prabhupada says simply because he wanted, actually two reasons are given. One, he was a little inquisitive to hear about this other method of meditation. And secondly, he wanted this to be spoken for the benefit of others. That was Maharaj Parikshit's reason for asking this question. And for these people, it will have to be a gradual process. First contact about the personal feature of the Lord in his cosmic manifestation, and then gradually as become purified, and can hear about the personal feature of the Lord. Actually, nowadays, people are very scared to speak about the personal feature of the Lord. Because if they speak that they believe in a personal God, they get ridiculed, they get criticized. And this week I met a gentleman and his fiancée who came to the temple. And I asked him, do you believe in God? He said, yes. So I asked him, so what is your understanding of God? Who is God? And he said, God is an impersonal energy. Because for them, it's very difficult for them to conceive of the Lord as a person. Very difficult for them to conceive of the Lord as, as a person. Like, two hands, features, like human-like features. And most of the books you read to spiritual books today, they will talk about the universe, they will talk about the universal energy, but there'll be no mention of a personal God. No mention. So this is what Shukdev Goswami is trying to do. And I'll quickly finish text number 23 because we were going to do from 20 to 23 today. So Shukdev Goswami, Shri Shuka Uvacha, Jeta Sano Jita Swaso, Jita Sango Jitendriya, Stule Bhagavato Rupe, Mana Sandara Yeddiya. Shukdev Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by the yogic pranayama, and thus control the mind and the senses with intelligence. Apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord called the Virat Rupa. Purport. The materially observed mind of the conditioned soul does not allow him to transcend the limits of the bodily conception of the self. And thus the yoga system for meditation, controlling the sitting posture and breathing process and fixing the mind upon the Supreme, is prescribed in order to mold the character of the gross materialist. Unless such materialists are able to cleanse the materially absorbed mind, it is impossible for them to concentrate upon thoughts of transcendence. And to do so, one may fix one's mind in the gross material or external feature of the Lord. The different parts of the gigantic feature of the Lord are described in the following verses. The materialistic men are very anxious to have some mystic powers as a result of such a controlling process. But the real purpose of yogic regulations is to eradicate the accumulated dirty things like lust, anger, avarice, and all such material contaminations. If the mystic yogi is diverted by the accompanying feats of mystic yoga, then his mission of yogic success is a failure, because the ultimate aim is God realization. He is therefore recommended to fix his gross materialistic mind by a different conception and thus realize the potency of the Lord. As soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of the transcendence, one automatically advances to the next step, and gradually the stage of full realization becomes possible for him. Prabhupada is describing very, very nicely the dangers of the mystic yoga process. The first danger Prabhupada said is, by the mystic yoga process, we will get mystic cities, and one can be diverted by that. And secondly, by the mystic yoga process, one may see the super soul, and one may mistakenly think that that super soul is themselves, that they are the Lord. So this Ashtanga yoga process is very, very risky, very, very risky. But if that Ashtanga yogi can be taught of how to conceive of the personal feature of the Lord through the Virat Rupa, understanding of the Virat Rupa, they have a much better chance of spiritual success, because they have a much better chance of coming to the first stage of Bhakti Yoga. So this is what's being described in these verses, very interesting verses by Shukdev Goswami. The idea is to help those who are unable to come to the stage of the personal feature of the Lord. And therefore, it's interesting that at this stage of the Bhagavatam, like just say, for example, a person who has got no conception of the personal feature of the Lord and has great difficulty in conceiving of the Lord as a person, we sell them a Srimad Bhagavatam set. Now, they are going to eventually come to the 10th canto, which is the most intimate description of the personal feature of the Lord. They will find it challenging to transition. So these descriptions in the 2nd canto, in this chapter, is very important for such people. is going to help them to enter into the Bhagavatam, which is nothing but personalism, nothing but bhakti through these descriptions. And this is what Shukdev Goswami is doing. And this is what's been described in these verses. Thank you very much. I've gone a bit over today. It was very interesting long verses, long purports, which we needed to discuss. So I'll stop here. If there's any questions, comments, reflections, dear devotees, feel free to share or ask.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra Prabhu, thank you so much for explaining this impersonal feature of the Lord. Actually, today, first time the way you have explained, it helped me to how these yogis who are kind of they think of different aspect of the universe to be as a person, and then eventually by that process they come to know the personal feature of actually Krishna. But you mentioned about they see in their heart the forearm Lord, but then they think that's them. So how is that really helping them to understand our the personal feature? How is it beneficial to them if they come to know that's them? So I just want to know a little bit more.
Well, it's not beneficial for them. Actually, when they see the super soul through this process of Astanga Yoga, and Prabhupada says, in the purports we were reading today, Prabhupada says, there has to be a tinge of bhakti. If there's no tinge of bhakti, it's a big danger. It's a big danger for these yogis because they may misunderstand that they are the Lord. So even these yogis, they have to be introduced that the Lord is a person. They have to be introduced to this concept. Yeah, if they're fortunate to meet a devotee, or if their mood is genuine, then Krishna will help them. Krishna will say, no, 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 no. From within their heart, Krishna will say, no, this is not you. This is not you. This is me. What you're seeing is me. So the point is there have to be some sentiment of bhakti or devotion.
Yes.
It has to be. All the other processes are weak, are very weak. Yeah, sorry, Mataji, you were going to ask.
And that's why I just wanted to know. So Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj did understand that all the people who are there are a combination of people of all these different categories who came to listen. So that's why he started doing that. That is the very difficult thing for anybody. So he started with this explanation for the people who are there, so that they can get the benefit of hearing this part of Bhagavatam, for them to be elevated, to understand that if they're practicing this, then they need to understand that God is actually personal. And that will help them to not to go distract themselves to that personal form is them. So they will be benefited, this kind of a particular people who are there. But it's so interesting that Shukadev Goswami already realized, that all the people who are there, they are categorized into different people have come. So he had to give the knowledge sort of step by step for everybody who are there.
Just like Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about karma yoga. Then he talks in the 6th chapter about Astanga yoga. Then he talks about Jnana yoga. And then Krishna talks about Bhakti yoga in the 9th chapter. So, Krishna's and the devotee's ultimate aim is to bring everyone to the path of bhakti. But they also appreciate that different people are on different stages. So they try to come up with different ways to attract them. It's called Karma Mishra. Sometimes it's called Karma Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, Yoga Mishra Bhakti, all mixed. At best, it's mixed, you know. But the Bhagavatam is trying to bring everyone to Kevala Bhakti, pure devotional service.
Absolutely. Isn't it difficult for them to go through that big thing and meditate so many years for them to, isn't it easier to just accept Krishna as the four arm or two arm God than
Prabhupada explains in the purport why. Because the mind is covered with dirty things. When the mind is dirty, you can't, you won't be able to do it. Fix your mind on the personal feature of the Lord. You have to become free of the dirt. That's like a main part of the verses we're describing today. And so they have to hear about the Lord in his Virat Rupa form, gradually become purified, and then they can move on.
Is that why in Bhagavad Gita Krishna showed that? I mean, Arjuna understood, because whatever Krishna spoke, or whatever Arjuna asked, it was dictated by Krishna within the heart of Arjuna. That's why he asked. Is that the why he? Because he knows that some people will be benefited with that form. So that's why he explained to Arjuna like that.
Yeah, Prabhupada explains that in the purport. Prabhupada gives a few reasons why Krishna showed the universal form. One is to set the standard. If anyone claims to be God, they should show the form. And second, Prabhupada says some people are unable to conceive, so they have to see the Lord in his universal form and so on. Yeah.
It's so interesting. And today I got really connected with that. The way you explain these things, it really hit within myself. So that's why I just thought, let me clarify. Is that also the Mayavadis? They also think they're all Narayan.
Dr. Prabhupada speaks about the Mayavadis quite often in these purports. Prabhupada is saying they can't think of the Supreme Lord in his personal feature. So they'll have to think about the Virat Rupa and then from there move on. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yogis, Mayavadis, everyone.
Thank you so much for your class. It helped me today so much.
Thank you.
I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions, comments, or reflections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you accept my humble obeisances, O good Prabhupada? Prabhuji, I have a question. So these yogis, so when they realize a Paramatma in the heart, those who don't believe that they are God, do these yogis, do they go to the Brahman planet?
Brahman planet? You mean impersonal Brahman?
Yes. Do they reach the Brahman planet? Because we have the Brahman, and then we have the we have the effulgence of the Lord. That's what I understand. And then we have it's a personal, impersonal, and then we have Bhagavan. So there is a planet for that. Like we have the sun disk, we have the sun rays, and we have the sunshine, right? If I'm wrong, please correct me. So do these people go to the Brahman?
The Brahman effulgence. Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's only those who have the impersonal feature of the Lord that go, but those who see the super soul and they develop within their hearts the feeling of bhakti, we read later on in the Bhagavatam, have we read it already? The story or the pastime of Narad Muni, how he saw the Lord, and then Dhruva Maharaj. From them, bhakti developed. So those who cannot transition to the personal feature of the Lord, meaning, and then develop the sentiments of bhakti, they will go to the impersonal Brahman. But those who advance to the stage of samadhi, then they will go to the planet of the Lord. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yes, Prabhuji, I just wanted to know that once they realize the super soul in the heart,
Yes.
so are they qualified to go in the higher planet, or do they go to the Brahman planet?
No, if they realize the super soul in the heart, again, it all depends what happens to them. If they think that they are God and they become contaminated, then they will fall down back into the material world. If they only realize but you see, there's three realizations of the absolute truth: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman is those who only realize the impersonal feature. Those who realize the Paramatma feature, meaning that the Lord is Paramatma, then they go to the planet of the Lord. They don't go into the impersonal Brahman. Because, see, it's not like one has to go from Paramatma realization to Bhakti, to Bhagavan.
Yes.
One
Yes,
has to go through to devotional service.
Mm-hmm.
One has to go through, and then one transitions to the personal feature of the Lord. I mean, planet of the Lord, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Not sure if I answered it properly, but that's the general gist of it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra, please accept my humble obeisance. Just to want further clarification. So the yogis who understand the 400 form of the Lord within their heart, and they go to the Vaikuntha planet, or do they go to the Vaikuntha planet means Golok Vrindavan, or do they stay in where the Lord is in the forearm when in their perfectional stage?
Well, the penultimate stage of the Ashtanga Yoga process is Samadhi. And Samadhi is described as a complete absorption in thought of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, those that think of me at the time of death, they come to me.
Mm-hmm.
They come to me. So, generally, they would go to the Vaikuntha planets. But if they have the seed of Vraja Bhakti, then they will take birth to progress on the path to Vraja Bhakti, either in the planet where Krishna is performing his pastimes in the material world, or in this planet here to advance the Vraja Bhakti.
Okay.
Yeah, but if they are really in the stage of Samadhi, fully absorbed, and as Krishna says, those who think of me at the time of death, they come to me.
So wonderful, so wonderful. This whole thing. I feel very, very fortunate to be there today. It's clarified a lot of my misunderstanding to some kind of understanding. I'm really grateful to you, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Let me see on the chat if there's any questions or comments. No. All right. Everyone, thank you very much for your attendance. All glories to your service, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacho patitanam pavanebhyo. Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for
Prabhuji, for the
giving
nice class. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, thank you for the nice class. Hare Krishna.